Chapter 19, The Interview. The request I consider is from Barbara Walters. She has a running correspondence with Erik and seems like a genuinely compassionate person. The first time I speak to her on the telephone, she is the opposite of everything I'd expect. She isn't pretentious or snobby. She's surprisingly open, honest, and easy to talk to. She believes that by speaking out, I'd have the opportunity to reveal Erik's true nature, a much different person than the public has been shown before. It's very tempting, yet I find myself getting cold feet. What Barbara doesn't know is that her honesty and kindness suits me. This will be no fluff piece, she insists, but she will be fair. She'll allow me to present an accurate portrait of Erik. Though our talks, I begin to suspect that one of the reasons Barbara Walters has been so successful is because she genuinely cares for the people she interviews. It's not simply about getting the interview. I think Barbara is concerned I'm going to back out of the interview. It's true, I do go back and forth in my decision almost weekly. She knows I'm stalling, so she decides that instead of flying me to New York, she will fly out to California in early June. She'll visit Erik and conduct the interview with me. There's no way out of it. The interview is on. Erik decides it would be a good idea to prep me with a practice question and answer session. He sits across from me, face becoming serious. Ready? He asks. Go ahead. Why is it you decided to marry Erik Menendez? My reaction is heartfelt. Oh my god, say it's not true. I'm married to Erik Menendez? If only I could have snapped a picture of his face. Okay, funny girl. I need a minute to stop laughing. My face is bright pink. That's as far as we get. I tell him not to worry. I'm not nervous. However, my words come out. It'll be fine. I assure him that with Barbara, I'm in good hands. I'm surprisingly comfortable at the notion of being interviewed by her. I don't have that in-awe feeling when I'm around celebrities. The actual airing of the interview makes me far more nervous. It's my version of coming out. The one area of my life that is off limits is my daughter Talia. I won't allow any pictures of her face to be shown. Her life will remain private. The tricky part, though, is to capture the relationship of Talia and Erik. They have a beautiful story. The two of them certainly behave like they've been father and daughter from the beginning. Erik tutors her for over an hour every Sunday. They read together, sing together, do projects together, and work through her life problems together. He is gently guiding her to be a giving and compassionate person. He continues the save Mother Earth at all costs theme, and she responds to it like a bee to honey. Perhaps his one flaw with Talia is that he never reprimands her regardless of what she does, and can't bear to scold her. I'm all right with it. It's very obvious to me that they need one another. The night before the interview, Barbara takes me out for dinner. During dinner, Erik is able to call. He's worried that I might be overwhelmed. He tells me he loves me and tries to calm me, but I end up calming him. Barbara insists on saying hello. He welcomes her to California. She reminds him that she's been out here once or twice before. She tells him that she'll be at the prison tomorrow to visit, and then she compliments me to him profusely. He does his best to agree with her. His time is short. He must go. Barbara hands me back the phone, and he's back in my ear. He tells me he loves me again. I do the same, and suddenly, he's gone. It's the story of our life. I suspect I won't soon forget the day Barbara rides the blue school bus with me to visit Erik. It's not the kind of situation you'd expect to find her in. But then she has traveled the world, and I am sure she's encountered many odd situations. She looks younger in person than she does on television, which is already years beneath her age. She has one of those slow aging genes. She is strong, confident, yet somehow gentle with me at the same time. She walks between Joanna, a 2020 producer, and me, not possibly knowing where she's going, but seemingly to know anyway. Erik is waiting for us. He is pacing at the bottom of the stairs. He stops when he sees us. Barbara and Erik share a warm greeting. They've kept in touch with each other for over 8 years. However, this is the first time she has seen him without chains on. Prisoners in the high power section of the county jail are weighed with iron chains and leg irons that hang about their waist and drag between their ankles. The mere image of Erik paraded around like that disturbs me. I still remember something his lawyer had said during the closing arguments of his first trial. She said she wanted to see the day when Erik was able to walk down the street without chains. Barbara has a unique way of being very warm and eminently proper at the same time. I'm immediately relaxed around her. She asks Erik about his life in prison, about how we met and fell in love. The mood is casual and enjoyable. The guards watch from a distance, loath to interfere, no matter what kind of simple guidelines Barbara might break, simply because she has not been at this prison before. Before I know it, it's time to leave. I privately kiss Erik goodbye in the corner. I don't want to leave. I'd really love for him to come with me for support. He knows I'll do fine and teases me with some parting advice. Make sure you let them know how you courted me for years before I'd marry you. The interview is taped in a grand hotel room. Inside, a very large camera crew is arranging their equipment. I can't help but wonder how this moment has come to pass. In my heart, I'll always be a small town American girl from Minnesota. I'm very proud of the state I grew up in. Its close-knit communities, helpful, kind people, and gorgeous sceneries among the forests and lakes of the Midwest. Had anyone told me 10 years ago that I would one day be sitting across from Barbara Walters, being interviewed in a hotel suite in California about my marriage to one of the most recognized prisoners in the country, I would have laughed for a long time. And if I had believed it, I would have probably fainted. Yet I'm completely relaxed as Barbara asks me how I feel about what Erik did, how we fell in love, and whether I realize that other people can't understand why I would choose to marry a prisoner, much less one so well known. I am honest and forthright. No, I don't condone what he did. I never expected to fall for Erik, and sure, I understand that other people believe I'm nuts for marrying him. In fact, none of them thought we'd make it this long. The interview lasts for about 45 minutes. Afterwards, Barbara hugs me goodbye. She is flying back to New York soon. She tells me that the interview went very well. I thank her for treating me so well, for being the compassionate and remarkable woman she is. I have a strong sense when I leave her, that afternoon, that I have met one of the classiest women I will ever know. She is really one of a kind. Atop a ridge overlooking the teardrop lake of Folsom is a home that has become a lighthouse for Erik and me. During my drive home on this violet evening, I see it outlined on the crest of the hill. I miss Erik tonight. I know if he were here, he would comfort me. He would tell me that it doesn't matter whether I did well or poorly in the interview. Life, he believes, is not about the outcome for that. Ultimately, is beyond our control. All that matters, he would say, is that I faced my fears and did my best with an open heart. So I stare at my lighthouse on the hill this evening, comforted by the knowledge that somewhere out there, from within the prison walls, Erik can see the same lighthouse too. We are connected by a beacon in the night. My developing perception of life's meaning and purpose has caused me to make additional and drastic changes in my lifestyle. I have sold my home. It's too big, too grand for me and Talia. Why do I need a big palm tree in my backyard, a large swimming pool with a fountain, and a house with so many extra bedrooms? I want a smaller place, less to clean. I also want to set aside money for Erik's appeal. He has no personal funds. His appeal is reaching a critical stage. He needs the best attorneys, and the price will not be cheap. My interview will air in September 2002. Seeing my face on television promotions for the show strikes at my insecurities. It's as if I've stepped into some alternate universe where the other version of me has gone completely out there and is actually publicly speaking out about her marriage to Erik Menendez. ABC also runs promo on the radio with snippets of my interview with Barbara. I hear one of these promos without warning while I'm driving Talia to school. It's so shocking to me for a moment. I simply freeze. Then I quickly turn the station. The only thing Talia is able to grasp is that they just mentioned Erik's name on the radio. She clearly heard it, and there's no getting around it. She let me know this right off the bat. She's a very smart girl and likes to set the ground rules before she strikes up a game or conversation. Are you sure? I ask. Yes, they just said Erik's name. Oh boy, here we go. Talia's eyes are big. Well, it looks like you'll have something to talk about when you see him tomorrow. I think I'd better give Erik a warning. For years, I have avoided the difficult subject of Erik's incarceration, but eventually the truth became obvious to her. She was 6 years old at the time. It began to dawn on her that Erik's home seemed unusually limited. Most serious discussions with children involved the birds and the bees or revelations like that stork and the baby basket. Talia and I have had to talk about the jailers and the jailed. I only offer this kind of information about Erik as her questions come up. She offers very natural guidance towards knowing the appropriate time to tell her the fuller truth about things. I remember holding my breath and plunging ahead. I explained to her that Erik is in a place where grown-ups are sent when they are being punished for a while. Kind of like being sent to your room, only you can have visitors. I told her that Erik is an extremely kind and good person who did something very wrong. I explained that Erik's parents harmed him in very painful ways. And one day he fought back and he hurt them very badly. And now they are in heaven. I told her that Erik feels horrible for what he did and that it happened a long time ago, before she was born. There's no question I'm still concerned about the impact Erik's incarceration and circumstances will have on her. She is 7 now and already views him as her dad. In all respects, he fills that role for her. She needs a much of a dad to love her unconditionally, and Erik loves her as his own child. Despite my concerns about the emotional impact Erik's incarceration would have on her, it's clear that she views his prison world as she does any other part of her world. She never knew a time when Erik wasn't in prison, so there's no traumatic effect of her losing a major piece of her world. She never had it to begin with. Those who claim that raising a child like this is unhealthy need only spend a little time with her to recognize how healthy she is. I think the emotional health of a child boils down to safety and to parenting skills. From Erik, she receives unconditional love, a spiritual base, and an understanding that she is a beautiful person who has so much to offer and give back to the world, a soul with purpose. She's far more grounded than I was at her age. She'll even tease Erik. He'll say he is going to dinner with us, and she'll laugh. Oh, no, you don't. She'll say, you're staying here. That door is as far as you go. As with concepts like Santa and the Tooth Fairy, she accepts the world at face value. She doesn't know it to be any other way. She does, however, wish he could come home. That's the part that breaks my heart. That and watching him see us leave. In all honesty, I'm hoping to turn lemons into lemonade here. Talia is a beautiful girl, with a keen mind and a very outgoing personality. She is afraid of nothing. She will achieve the heights she reaches for in life. Erik and I want her to explore her spiritual passions rather than being completely swept away by the abundance of material pleasures our culture will throw at her. At some point, we will all get swept away. My hope is that we can root her firmly enough to life's true values. As I mentioned before, my feeling is that by exposing her to the underbelly of society, the castaways, and downtrodden, she will be less susceptible to the lies, prejudice, and hype that indoctrinates people to believe all prisoners are violent, evil men, or even that the poor are somehow less deserving of love, kindness, and opportunities. Having been exposed to a different truth, I hope she will seek out her own path and in time lead a life that has deep personal meaning to her. Even before the show has aired, problems begin. Thursday morning, two officers show up at Erik's cell door. Erik recognizes them as members of the Prison Investigation Squad, ISU. The cell door racks open. We need you to step out of the cell, Mr. Menendez. It's not a request. Normally, ISU officers don't discuss their investigations even with the general guards, despite being correctional officers themselves. Sure, he says, suddenly apprehensive. What's going on? The two officers exchange a glance. Erik knew these two officers before they joined ISU, and he's had a fairly good rapport with them. The larger officer, a towering man, decides to level with him. Here's the deal. Somebody's saying that a picture of the inside of your cell was used in the promo for your wife's interview. This cell? Right. That's not possible. We've got orders to search the cell. Erik sighs. Cell searches like this tend to turn everything in it upside down. All right. As it turns out, the two officers don't believe the story either, but orders are orders. They leave the cell largely intact. Erik calls me. He's concerned. Whenever ISU hits your cell, that means something is up. Please call Joanna and ask if there's a photograph in the promotion. I call Joanna. She assures me there is no photograph. Joanna, they just searched Erik's cell over it, I tell her. That's when things quickly spin out of control. To Erik's dismay, the warden is called. An investigation begins as to the real reason ISU searched Erik's cell. It seems a simple matter, but Erik sees trouble ahead. Sweetheart, now I'm suddenly the reason the goon squad itself is being investigated. That's a problem. Why? Because they're going to believe that I asked for the investigation. But you didn't. Besides, they've already given you enough problems. They tore up your cell, looking for the ladder system book, and destroyed them all. One got out. One copy. If it hadn't been for that one, there would be nothing left of all that work. They were thrilled about that one. Well, too bad you did nothing wrong. It's only because your warden was promoted and the new warden took over that you went through that anyways. So what more can they do to you that hasn't already been done? He eyes me, sapphire sparkling with the love for me that never wanes. That's what we're about to find out together. That fall, the investigation would conclude that the order to search Erik's cell was improper. The ISU sergeant who ordered the search, although well liked in his unit, was reassigned. Calling him a scapegoat for the administration, which he undoubtedly was, the two ISU officers who searched Erik's cell resigned from the unit in protest and disgust. So what does that mean? I ask Erik. It means life is about to get really, really interesting. It's not that bad. He smiles, reassuring at me. Erik, you're getting paranoid. Yeah. The show airs the next night. Barbara's tough questions are emphasized, but I am pleased with her fairness and portrayal of our relationship and love for each other. A prominent lawyer is interviewed. He mentions that Erik's trial was fundamentally flawed. Talia is in bed. She does not see the interview, of course. She does, however, have a few questions for Erik at visiting the next day. We arrive at the prison and discover that the interview is big news among the visitors. Loved ones and wives of prisoners are usually portrayed as nutcases. Television shows and magazine articles seem to thrive on making fun or belittling them. Overnight, I discover I've become an acceptable spokeswoman for their cause. This was definitely not the plan. These people need and desire a spokesperson, but I am the wrong woman for the job. Unfortunately, nobody seems to listen when I point that out. Strangers approach me to thank me for explaining that wives of prisoners are normal and kind people. People smile at me, wave. A woman and her younger daughter wait for me in the parking lot of the prison. She is incredibly sweet and overly generous with praise. We speak for a minute, and she is gone before I can catch her name. If I had any delusion that the interview would end the media request, I am sadly mistaken. I am bombarded with flower bouquets, fruit baskets, letters, and telephone calls. I'm completely taken back by all of it. People stop me in the streets and in restaurants to express sympathy for my difficult situation. Others simply stare and keep their distance. Other than to visit Erik, I don't leave my home. I don't answer my telephone. I don't recall what was supposed to happen, but this was definitely not it. I quietly turn down or ignore any request. If this experience was intended to open me to the world, it's having the wrong effect. Erik assures me that the attention will soon die down. He is right, of course, but the effects continue to reverberate throughout our lives. When Talia and I reach the visiting room, she takes her usual running start and leaps into Erik's arms. She nuzzles into his neck and wraps herself around him like a Velcro monkey. This has become her standard greeting for Erik. He puts her down and kisses me hello. Okay, break it up, Talia chimes in. The party's over, my turn, in the middle. She bulldozes her way between me and Erik. She takes his hand in her left and mine in her right and heads for our table. Erik smiles at me. I wink at him. He needs this kind of love. We settle into our chairs. Talia hops into Erik's lap. She looks up at him and says, All right, mister, why were people talking about you? Erik's eyebrows lift. People? They were talking about you on the radio. He looks over. Oh, that. Well, first you have to understand how much people love me. I roll my eyes. Erik, I say, chastising him with my tone. What? Some people love me. He turns to Talia. You love me, right? Of course I love you, Daddy. Silence. For a moment, I think Erik's heart is going to burst. She's never called him Daddy before. Your daddy is in heaven, sweetie, he says softly. I have two daddies. You're my daddy too, aren't you? Erik dissolves into a pool of slush. Yes, I am. I am your daddy too. And you are my little princess. He squeezes her tightly. I need to breathe here, she teases. Oh, right, he says, pulling back. Where were we? Radio, she chirps from his knee. Yes, the radio. It's actually pretty simple. Before a person goes to prison, they have what's called a trial. During my trial, there were a lot of TV shows about it. Sometimes people still talk about it. One day, I will tell you all about it myself. Talia nods. She seems satisfied. She asks a few more questions, but really, she's eager to show Erik what she's learned in math. She has a need for him to be proud of her, even though he always is. I sit back and watch them interact, my husband and my little girl. We make a strange family, but a family is what we are. He feeds her math problems, she works them out, and he teaches her new concepts. He could have been a teacher if things had been different. As it is, this life has been about survival for Erik. One thing I do know is that this family will stay intact. When I look into Talia's eyes, it's so obvious that she needs his love. It's even more obvious that he needs hers. They fill a space, an emptiness in each other that's been carved out by the passing of other lives so long ago and souls who have returned home. Each of them fill an emptiness in my life too. We complete each other. I think that was the message I tried to convey during my interview. I want people to see a different side of Erik, the true side, and to know that love really can conquer all hardships.